speaking of some of those earlier days, and you mentioned Utopia as well. Um, I know that you actually started out as a playwright when you were studying, and Utopia was actually something that you came up with when you were a middle school teacher. Is that right?
Yeah, so what happened was, I fell into the games industry by accident because they put a terminal in our dorm in 1971. So
Hmm.
literally, I was walking back from classes one day and I heard this clack, clack, clack sound of the terminal printing on paper very slowly. And so
Yeah.
that's how I met the computer. And I was training as a playwright. My great dream in college had been, I wanted to impact American theater as a writer. And so but I also knew that writers starve. And so when I got out of school, I worked as a teacher and I enjoyed teaching. And I was teaching a middle school bilingual program in an area called a barrio, which is a heavily Spanish speaking area,
Hmm.
35 miles east of Los Angeles in Southern California. And it's too bad it wasn't Portuguese, given the Brazilian theme of our show, but I was teaching in
I know, and your
Spanish and teaching
pronunciation
English.
is spot on, so people would have been very proud.
And so and this is an area where a lot of my students were very smart, but in these kinds of environments, they lived in very restricted areas. A lot of kids, it wasn't safe to leave about a 16 square block area many times for kids. And there was a lot of violence in the community and so on, and other hostile communities. And so I'm thinking one of the things I'm supposed to, and I guess it's my second or in my third year, I'm supposed to teach world geography to kids. And I'm
Mm.
thinking, if kids can't safely go outside of 16 square blocks, how do I teach them about the world?
Yeah, yeah.
And so one day I was in the school cafeteria. And in this school cafeteria, they had fold up tables. So during the day, for the kids to come in and eat lunch and have other snacks or things, tables are down. End of the day, they come in, they clean everything, tables are folded up, and they wash the floor.
Mm.
Well, the floor is made out of linoleum tiles that are about 1 foot square.
Hmm.
So and I'm sorry, I'm not going to be doing that to what 30 centimeters roughly. And
Uh,
so the I'm looking at the square tile, and of course, if you're a gamer of any kind, you're used to looking at maps, and you're either hex or you're square.
mm-hmm.
And so I looked at the squares. I know what I want to do. I went to a store and I got 3 rolls of black electrical tape, and I had a
Wow.
map of the world, and I just put grids across it. And I got
Wow.
the idea about 2:30 or 2:45 in the afternoon. The kids had just gone home. And so about 3:30, I had my electrical tape. I gridded off my map and I started just tearing off tape and making the squares on the map turn into squares on the cafeteria floor.
Wow.
And so by about 5:30 that afternoon, but it took me about 2 hours, I had a rough map, a low res map of the world in black electrical tape sitting on the floor of the cafeteria. And I had neglected to ask the principal of our school, the headmaster of our school,
Yeah.
is it okay for me to do? I was thinking, well, it's educational. I'd
I was
rather
about to say
ask
it's
for
educational purposes. It's
forgiveness
fine.
than permission. So, and then the next day, everybody came in and said, "What the heck is this?" And I explained. And I was lucky because instead of making me undo it all, my principal watched and saw. Then I made up games for the kids to play on this big game board. So they
Mm.
get the idea of, okay, you have to cross a big ocean here. This country is much farther away. This country is tiny. Um, well, has your team earned a ship yet? If you haven't earned a ship, you can't go over here.
Oh.
If you want to get oil, you have to go to this part of the world if you need more oil.
Hmm.
And so it worked. The kids remember it. And after a few days, the principal called the local newspaper, and a reporter and a photographer from the newspaper came out, took a picture of some of the kids. The girl who's most prominent in the photo, this is what, 86 or 87, is still a Facebook friend of mine, is now all grown up, has her own kids.
Oh, wow.
And so when I had the chance to do Utopia at Intellivision, I was trying to do a game that wasn't like all the other games we had, wasn't like the games that Atari had. We were at war with Atari at the time in the first console wars. And so I was thinking about, well, what could we do? And I had done on mainframe, I'd done a game about the Killer Shrews movie. And that had given me the chance, and I am going to turn that off. So having done a Killer Shrews movie set on an island in a mainframe game, I'd had that experience. I just put them all together. And it was a sim on islands with that kind of a map, and then played on squares. So the cafeteria game was actually part of what inspired me to create Utopia in the way I did.
No, it's incredible. It's crazy to hear like the backstory of a game that has been so influential. Like you said, it was sort of the beginning of real-time strategy. And
in fact, I got my decades wrong because I said 86, but I was already deep in the games industry in 86. It was actually 76 when I did this. So
what kind of game would you do today?
It's an excellent question. I'm gonna ask the same.
You know, it's interesting because the game I have in mind for after the one I'm working on now, which I can't talk about at this point, has elements of that. But the only place that game really exists is in my head and a few pages of notes. You have to focus on one thing at a time in many ways. And if you're saying, oh, I want to work on this game, I want to work on this game, I want to work on this game, there's always the danger of shiny object syndrome, and you divide your time up so much, you never focus on one thing. And for indies, that can be especially dangerous. On big projects, you have lawyers, you have finance people, you have layers of executives, and you have a very clearly set goal, budget, time, everything that's defined around you. And then you can't be distracted. One of the things about being indie is in some ways, you're more vulnerable to being distracted, because at least until you have a partner you're working on for distribution or funding, it's the team alone with the team. And it's very easy to go walking through the woods. And if I think about all the hikes I've taken I've ever loved, all of those paths have forks, and you can go left up towards the mountain, or you can go right down towards the stream, or you can turn left here and you go into redwoods. I'm near San Francisco in California. You can go this way and go in the redwoods, or you can go this way and go into a sunny hilltop with a great view. In game development, you're going along with a game idea, and what can happen so easily, even when you're guarding against it, is an idea comes in that doesn't support the pillars of the game you're building, but it sounds like such a cool idea, and you can start to wander off the path in the direction towards that idea, and suddenly you find yourself, instead of walking straight to the goal of your game, you're going back and forth as you take all these little side paths. So one of the things I try and teach on the teams and the game makers might advise is understanding the difference between deciding upon something, about having a goal, a vision of what you're setting out to do, whether it's with the entire project this month or even this week, and still being open to ideas about what you're going to do in your game. Because if you close yourself off, those new ideas that come are part of what make games special. But you have to understand, where am I trying to get? What is the difference between a distraction and an opportunity? Opportunities we want to seize. Yes, I want that opportunity. Distractions, it's kind of like, I'll talk to you later. We'll deal with that later. And sometimes it's very hard to figure out what's an opportunity and what's a distraction. What if we made it multiplayer? Oh, well, maybe we should have a solo mode. You know, whatever your game is, if it's something that doesn't support that core, then you have to really, it has to be incredibly awesome to be willing to divert yourself away from that and change the pillars of your game. Because once you're very deep into it, that's hard to do.